Okay, guys, FaceTime is bringing the Celtic TV together. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm on brand. I'm quite disappointed with the other two of you, but
Actually on brand as well. And
Oh, he is as well. I've not got one. I need to get one.
I'm actually wearing the hoops just in case I get a call up. So
well, I'm impressed, Joe, and I apologise. But first of all, Simon, it's good to see you. How are you keeping, and how's things with you and your family?
Aye, all right. Just crazy times. Groundhog Day. My wife's still working, so it's predominantly me and the three boys in the house. We've only had 2 fights in lockdown, which is a success, I think. But I generally we're doing all right. We live in Eaglesham and we're quite near the countryside, so we can get out and about, whether it's cycling or walking or running, so it's not too bad.
Because I suppose the first thing that Joe and I suppose the rest of the Twitter world want to know is, we obviously saw your tweet the other night with one of your sons was slagging you for the goal against Rangers, which was really a low blow.
It was a low blow, but I blame my father. My father's been winding me up about that for over 20 years, so it's obviously rubbed off. But they were in the garden, and my youngest pushed my middle boy into a flower bed, and he's got up in a bit of a rage, and my oldest boy's nutmegged him, and I've slagged him, and that was his comeback. Oh, you've not scored against the Rangers, which I thought was hysterical, but I didn't want to laugh in front of him, so I waited till he left, and then I had a wee and I put it up. Somebody accused me of lying on Twitter. I don't know why, but I get some really good comments from it. But it was a fun moment.
Yeah. I suppose, Joe, Twitter and social media has been, in some respects, has been a good thing for people to keep in touch with everybody, and as Simon has shown there, just a bit of banter as well with fans.
yeah, I mean, I'm not the first person to say it, but whilst this is a horrible situation all over the world, if this had happened 15 years ago, 20 years ago, before we had all the technology at our fingertips, it would have been a completely different situation altogether. In terms of Simon's son slagging him about Rangers, it reminded me of when we did the commentary for the last home game before the break at St Mirren, and Lee Griffiths is gunning for a hat trick, and naturally saw Simon throughout his career at Celtic, and I said,
That's right.
How's he feeling just now? And I genuinely hadn't realised that Simon Donnelly had never scored a hat trick for Celtic. I think I there as well. So a real bad run there for you, Simon.
I should have. I remember. I don't know if you remember the 5-1 against Aberdeen that Cadete scored the fifth.
Mm-hmm.
I had a great chance that night to get a hat trick. That was my chance. I'd scored two, and it came through at me at the back post, and I should have buried it. So that was my chance.
Is that one of those ones where does that ever play in your mind, or is it just one of those things you just have to kind of shrug off because you're thinking that was your chance?
You just have to shrug it off. I mean, obviously the big goal would have been great to score against Rangers. I don't remember having a lot of chances. On the back of putting that tweet up, I was reminded of the semi-final at Hampden, and I've been reminded about that on more than one occasion, where I was through and I've watched it back, and I try to lift it over. I think it's Andy Gorham in goals, and just make a dog's dinner of it. Lift it far too high over the bar. I think I had a head on that game. I think those are the two chances that stick out, and I think Celtic fans remember it because it was such a big game. So you kind of look back now, and I do regret, because obviously that would have been great to have on the CV to score against Rangers. But it was not to be. And as I say, I've developed thick skin over the years, because my dad used to, he played for Motherwell, he scored against Rangers. So it's one of the ones that he's got one over on me, and he's reminded of it since I played there 20 odd years ago. So I've got used to it, but yeah, now it's rubbing off on my sons.
Because Joe was just talking there about the commentary before the lockdown, and I was talking to somebody the other day about one of my highlights of this season was the commentary that you and I did at Ibrox when we won 2-0, and there was 800 fans in one corner, there was some directors in the main stand, then it was me, you, I think Joe and Tony Conley, and that was it, and we were the only smiling faces in the stand.
We were trying to mute the celebrations, weren't we, when Johnny Hayes went through for the second. And I'd experienced the other side of that. I went there just at the turn of the year before, with Jerry. So obviously me and you had a better partnership with that one, Paul.
Exactly. And that's what, obviously, we were just on the verge of coming back there again to win again.
I know. I was telling somebody the other day, we were a day away, more or less, weren't we?
Yeah.
And it just got pulled. Which is a shame, but obviously everything that's happened since, it kind of pulls into insignificance, really.
And it's good, Joe, that you're on, because Ibrox isn't a venue that you go to anymore because you brought us Brad Luck as a fan, so we decided not to bring you as an employee.
Well, when I started this job in what I think it was late October 2018, just in the door, and yes, I didn't really want to let on about my bad luck as a fan at Ibrox because this is my job now. And after 2 weeks and no goals, I kind of came clean that it's not it's not the luckiest place that I go. So I've sort of barred myself, which kind of suits me. So yeah, as long as I'm not there, I'm always confident that we'll get a result, which is a strange but welcome place to be for me.
Yeah, listen, we're happy to just continue that.
Yeah.
Everybody I've been speaking to in terms of players and what have you for Celtic TV, and I've just been asking them like for their votes for Player of the Year. So we're just going to ask you guys because we put a thing up. We've been doing a thing on Celtic website. They played at Paradise, and one of the days was Xavi, and we described him as the Catalan Callum McGregor. And when we say we, I described him as the Catalan Callum McGregor. So for me, if I was having a vote, it's Callum for me.
Yeah, I think we've discussed it before. He's one of my favourite players to watch. Callum. I would say he played in a similar position to me when he plays more further forward. We know he's played different positions. He's played the holding role. He's sometimes had to fill in at left back. He shows his versatility as a football player. He's one I like watching. I would have him up there. Edouard, I think, had a fantastic season. Scott Brown leads all the time as the skipper. I would maybe go with McGregor.
Yeah, I think like what we've said so many times to anyone that we've had a podcast or you've been doing the video calls with, Paul, is anyone that's not caught up with the podcast or anything is in some years, you kind of determine a front runner even in the recent years that we've had so many successes. But this year, that list, it really could be anyone. You could make a case for them all. Big goals from even Chris Julian as a defender, some great performances. Fraser Foster, the cup final performance alone is right in contention. As you say, Simon Scott Brown, you can never overlook him. James Forrest stat.
James Forrest as well, yeah.
Odsonne Edouard for everything that he brings to the not least being the top goal scorer and some of the quality of the goals he's got as well. Olivier Ntcham and of course Callum McGregor. For me, yeah, I mean it really could go to any one of those, couldn't it? I would probably agree over the course and his contribution in the 50 games I think it is that he's played for Celtic this year would be Callum McGregor as well, I'd say.
It's interesting, all the players that when they've been asked, it's they've all voted for Odsonne.
Yeah,
have they?
Right.
He's had a fantastic season. It just keeps going from strength to strength. I've covered the last 2 years with you guys and watched them develop, and it just keeps getting better and better. His finishing, his coolness, his all-round play improves. I think when he first came in, I watched him, oddly enough, I think he scored a hat-trick against Motherwell, and I didn't think he had a particularly good game. His kind of all-round play was a wee bit untidy, but that's developed as he's got older. I mean, we still have to remember he's, 21, 22?
22, yeah.
So, he's had a fantastic season.
It's funny, like when just before Musa left, and I think originally Brendan Rodgers' idea was to play Musa with Odsonne just playing off him, and you saw a couple of games and he thought that's going to be an exciting partnership, and obviously that didn't happen. But I think as a result, Odsonne's then having to lead the line, and you can see, as you say, I think that's really developed him as a player, his strength, his skill, and his touch and everything about him is just, sometimes it just takes your breath away sometimes.
I think as well, Lenny putting Griff up top as well. I think we covered that when we were watching the games from the turn of the year. I think the two of them were developing a partnership as well. That was beginning to flourish. And from my kind of old-fashioned views, I've always liked the two strikers up top. I've always thought a partnership up front, is something that's really potent. Understanding little ones round the corner, bouncing off each other, and maybe taking the pressure off him leading the line himself. Griffiths has come in and hit a bit of form as well. So I think that was adding to his performances as well.
Yeah, I think the manager Neil Lennon has times that, and he's right, like the one up front has been more fashionable in recent years. Obviously, it was kind of more traditional to play the two up top. Neil Lennon played in a side that two up top. He decided to play two up top. And he always mentioned Conte as somebody that, stuck with the two and it has really made it work. Because so many do play with one up top now, having that too, and because Celtic play much of their game on the front foot, if you've got Hudson Edward and his partner is somebody as good and as capable as Lee Griffiths to score and support, I mean, I imagine defensive lines don't know what to do, and you can see it happening whenever you're watching or commentating on the games.
Yeah, definitely.
It's funny, like they've been doing, and you were involved in some of these games where they've been showing them at the weekend, and you've been tweeting again. Just it's been really good fun, and they showed the game. I'm not sure what game it was at the weekend. It was one from this season, and I think it was Tom Boyd and I were commentating, and we must have praised Lee Griffiths' touch, which it's just exquisite at times. And I think he'd replied to the tweet saying that we were spot on. So it's taken me a long time to get any praise for commentary, but I'll take it from Lee Griffiths.
That concept's been really good. I thought I don't know if you guys have switched on to the music version with the guy out of Charlton's, Tim Burgess, talking through albums, and that the football thing works as well. I did the St Johnstone game, and I managed to get a phone Boydie that morning to try and get him because he wasn't on Twitter. So explaining Twitter to Boydie on the Saturday morning was like trying to talk my dad through the internet a wee bit. But he got on, full credit to him. I think he had about 8,000 followers by the end of the game. He came on and I managed to get Jackie. Jackie came on, and the three of us were kind of bouncing off each other a wee bit. I think Scott Brown came on briefly as well. So I've tuned into a few of the other ones as well. It's a really good idea, interacting with the fans. You actually get the perspective of the fans. You get where they were at that time and what they thought and what they were going through. So it's a really good idea.
Yeah. Obviously just mentioning Jackie there, for me, that's in difficult times. This has been, I think, that video where he put out just talking, thanking everybody for their support. That's been the highlight for me, the lockdown, just to hear him and just, obviously you're very close to him, but it was great, I think, as fans, just to hear that he's on the mend, because obviously it was a really worrying time,
Yeah, and he's doing really well. He's back home and he's getting strong. He's back doing his work. He's back working with his consilium. But I think that for everybody out there who gave him all that support, when he was going through the terrible time, it was great to reassure them that he was on the mend. So it was great. He get really good response from that video as well.
Yeah. I mean, can you guys believe that it's 22 years since we stopped the 10?
No, not at all. It's been great watching the stuff. I think it was on the Celtic TV, obviously, and then BBC had it on. I think the Rangers 5-1 game was on from '99 as well. It's remarkable when you watch it back and you see the players, and to think it was 22 years ago. It's just went like that.
Well,
my first year season ticket was the year that we stopped at 10 as well.
That right? What a season that was to start, eh? Your first season.
Glory hunting. No, I mean, I was still been 11, nearly 12, and
right.
That, just.
Where did you sit? Where was your ticket?
Well, we got the ticket, and talking about glory hunting, it's even worse. We got the ticket in January '98 in the what would be later called the Lisbon Lions stand, and then it was the southwest corner next to the Rockstein Open that was still in construction.
Yeah,
we moved over there, and we've still got those seats now. So we had the half season leading up to stop the 10 from that January onwards. It was a good push, and then so that. So, but yeah, I can't believe it.
Mad.
Because that's the most. I think still that's the most nervous as a fan I've ever been going to a game, because and I still think it's the most important title that Celtic have ever won.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones that when I look back now, and I've said it many a time, when you look back, you actually realise how important it is. At 24, you're caught up in it a wee bit. You're focused on your job. You're taking it in your stride a wee bit. Youthful maybe. At 45, I appreciate it more now. What we saved, what we preserved, the Lisbon Lions record, and as you say, kind of stumbled the week before at East End Park, which just added to it. And I always say, when I played that game, when I came off, when Vim made his correct decision to take me off and put Harold on, that 20-25 minutes was the most nerve-wracking of the season for me, because you just became a fan. I remember sitting there, you can't do anything, you can't influence the game anymore. And when Harold puts the second one in, it was just total relief. And I think everybody felt that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you remember Joe, you're just a wee guy at that time. You remember your reaction when Harold scores that goal?
Yeah, I mean, naturally, I looked through the internet. The, it was the funniest day that I've ever experienced in my life. Like just everything kind of place. I remember being excited, and all the songs I played, about the Celtic ones, all the Celtic adjacent ones, roll with it, and the boys are back in town and stuff. I think I appreciated more what it meant to my dad that day, because he would have been going the emotion,
yeah,
and experiencing a lot more than I would have realised at the time. It's more in hindsight that I've probably to appreciate that. It's interesting you say that, Simon, about when you're on the bench, because it's something that I've heard Ryan Christie say several times, obviously in the current, where if you've been maybe injured or suspended or even brought off mid-game, that suddenly you make that switch. And it's interesting to hear an ex-player say that, and it's obviously not changed, and it probably will never change. That
Well, it's one of the ones where I wasn't particularly outgoing as a youngster, but I always felt comfortable on the pitch. I think if you speak to football players, they always kind of back themselves on the pitch. It's where you're comfortable. And even people said to me, you're playing in front of 60,000 at Celtic Park, but that's where I wanted to be. That's where I backed myself. If you'd asked me at that time to go and, or even now, go and stand and speak in front of 60,000 people or 600 people, it'd be more nerve wracking. But when you come off that day, that's when I get nervous, because you're sitting there, you're powerless, you're sitting there on the bench, and you're just hoping that we get over the line. We knew Rangers were getting the result that they needed, and we knew one slip up, if St Johnstone scored, it was finished. So when Harold scores, and even watching it back the other night, the goosebumps, the roar when Harold puts the second one in. As I say, I think I jumped on poor John Clark's back at the time, and it was relief. It was total relief.
Absolutely. Joe and I were actually talking this week. We were doing some sort of historical features, and one of them was the 1972 Scottish Cup final. Celtic beat Hibs 6-1. Dixie Dean scored a hat trick, and I realised that was actually my first ever Scottish Cup final. So I was still only 5, and I just suddenly thought, I'm really old.
Well, Dixie's still, it's a great thing for being around the club at the moment, doing the kind of the lounges and the ambassadorial role, if you like. Dixie's still there. It's great to hear these guys, and he's quite humble with it as well. I think, correct me if has he scored a hat trick in 2 cup finals?
Yeah, he scored a couple of years later in the League Cup final against Hibs.
But it's funny listening. It's funny listening to the old boys, because they have to talk up for him. He plays it down. And they all, Bobby and that. I've heard, I've been in their company a few times where they said, but he scored 2 cup finals. He just plays it down.
It's incredible, because it's also, and everybody who's ever listened to me in Celtic TV, every time we play Hibs, particularly Hampden, and if you look at old footage from that game, we're wearing the hoops and Hibs are wearing the green and white, and there's no colour clash, and it was a battle of the greens. So you went as a wee guy, everybody in the pitch is wearing green and white, everybody in the stand is green and white.
Green and white, yeah.
And it was like, that's what Hampden's meant to be.
Yeah. Good times.
Joe, what was your first cup final then?
First cup final, I think, was the 97 League Cup final, the one at Ibrox, the Coca-Cola Cup final.
Oh, yeah.
That was coming up for, they've just turned 11 years old, I think. And yeah, I watched 95 in the house. That was the first. And I said my first proper huge success as a fan, really feeling it. I was excited to go to see. It's the only time that I bought a Celtic one at Ibrox. But I understood it enough. I was old enough to understand it. But stopping the tape, then everything that came after that, even personally having the season ticket, and then Martin O'Neill's era and everything after that, that was the start of everything. But it would have been 97 for me.
Right.
Yeah.
We are all getting old, of course.
We are indeed.
You mentioned, Simon, obviously, about the music side of things, and again, people that are following you on Twitter, you're a big music fan, and you mentioned Tim Burgess with Tim's Twitter parties where he goes through and he gets artists to get back through their albums, and as a music fan, it's brilliant, especially if it's like an artist. And Aztec Camera and Roddy Frame the other night we're talking about, which is one of my favourite albums from the 80s, and it's just, again, it's a great way of connecting people and getting people's interests, and hearing from, it's a bit like fans listening to you talking about stopping the 10. From a music point of view, it must be great for you listening to some of your favourite artists.
It's brilliant because you get so much insight into, they don't just talk you through the album. There's guys that are attached to them putting up memorabilia, photos, even album covers. This is what we were doing here. So and so was on that album cover. It's so much more than just listening to the album. And I tuned into, surprise, surprise, a couple of the Oasis ones, and they were great. They were great. They were talking you through songs, how the song was developed, how Noel wrote that one, how Liam. And it's a bit of interaction and a wee bit of insight. And that's where the football side, because I put that comment up on Sunday. It was tongue in cheek in the garden, a bit of a laugh, But some of the responses you get, it's really funny. Even the games, if you put up, there's a lot of stuff on Twitter they put up on this day so many years ago. And if you put something in, if you add your little bit, people are keen to tell you about where they were. I get told for the St Johnstone game, I was down in London watching the game on teletext, because you think back to a title decider and Rangers were at Tannadice and it wasn't on the telly, which is, if you think about that now, it's incredible, but that's what the feedback you're getting. People, I was watching it in London and on teletext. Can you imagine sitting staring at a screen for 90 minutes? The pressure and the nerves. But it's good that's the bits I like. I like to hear the response of the fans. I get a wee bit of that when I go to Celtic Park nowadays when I'm working there, if I'm walking in for the car park. And it's good. It's good to hear. It's nice to hear, and it's nice to maybe give them a wee bit back at a wee story that you've got about a player or whatever. It's good interaction.
Given that you came up as a player in the 90s, Simon, and that you were into the Britpop scene in the 90s as well, do you tie a lot of your Celtic memories with your music memories?
Aye, well, that game that you're talking about, that 97 game, I remember at the end of the game, as part of the celebration, we were looking up into the main stand. I'm trying to catch my family, my dad, or my mum, and Roll With It came on. And the whole Celtic support starts singing it. And I think me and Jackie at the time were big Oasis fans, were singing along. It's fantastic. It's like nowadays with the Edwards song, how that's developed. And see, when that really takes a light in Celtic Park, it's brilliant. I think you touched on it, Joe, and maybe yourself, Paul, as well, but being the coolest song for a player at the moment going round. So that's the one that tunes in for me. And I stuck that up on my Twitter about the 97 final. And somebody corrected me and said, that's not the first time it was played. It was played in the Parc des Princes in 95 when we played Paris Saint-Germain. So when the guy put that up, I was stood corrected. I thought, yeah, you're right, because I remember it being played there. So it's wee bits like that and interaction. It's quite good, especially when we've not got much else to do.
Right. That's impressive knowledge that somebody would know that had been played in Paris the first time.
Oh, but believe you me, you need to know you're exactly right with anything you put on social media, because somebody will always correct you.
Absolutely. Because I've always wondered, when you're talking about those different artists, I'd love to see Liam Gallagher going on that and talking everybody through.
But it was the guy Bonehead who was one of the guitarists.
Yeah.
He's doing the Oasis ones. It was meant to be him and Liam, but Liam's for whatever reason pulled out, because Liam, when he's on Twitter, can be quite funny. It would have been nice to hear him talking through, but he never appeared.
Doesn't he? I'm sure he's tours with Liam Gallagher solo now, isn't he?
He's doing stuff with Liam solo now. Aye, so it was him, and as I say, the first album that I tuned into, I think it was definitely Maybe, and it was meant to be him and Liam, and for whatever reason Liam pulled out. Who knows?
Well, listen, just put a date in your diary. May the 27th, they're doing Duran Duran's classic album Rio for the oldies. So
Right, we'll stick that in.
I've already got it in my side.
With all due respect to Duran Duran, their fans, and yourself, Paul, I probably won't be tuning in.
That's fair enough. But it's interesting, you were saying about the whole interaction with Twitter, and I think because it allows fans, because they've got memories of you playing and those occasions that they associate with you, but then to be able to interact and actually feel that in touch with like a player that they watched playing for Celtic and living the dream. That's one of the positive things about it.
It is. It definitely is, and it's given a wee bit back as well, because you can go in and talk them through what you were thinking at that particular point of the game, or that move, or they're asking you about what was he like in the dressing room, or what's your favourite goal. It's easy to give that back. It's good to give it back because I get a buzz off reactions of people thanking me for my time at Celtic. I really do. And at 45, I'm probably more appreciative of that than I would have been back then. But back then, it was more I had 7 years at Celtic. It was more a shyness. 17 to 24, it was suddenly you're in the Goldfish Bowl of Glasgow, and it was a wee bit, intimidating at times. You grew into it as you became a first team player because it was part of your job. But at 45, I'm a wee bit more relaxed with it, and it's good to hear what the fans have got to say. It's good. I like to hear their reactions. I like to hear their perspective of certain situations.
And I wonder as well, like, obviously, notwithstanding the fact that your son was slagging you for not scoring against Rangers, it must be good for them because then it just makes them aware of what you did in terms of your playing career.
Yeah, because none of them were around, obviously, at that time. But, I mean, I think it was the first week in lockdown, I found myself sitting late at night, and it could have been about 1 a.m. in the morning with my 11-year-old watching the Celtic Liverpool 2 each. We watched the full 90 minutes. And by the way, it was an even better game than what I can remember. But to sit and share that with him, that's exactly what you're saying. They know I played with Celtic, but they have to go onto YouTube or search to find little clips, which they do at times. I mean, they love the current team. My boy watches the current team constantly on YouTube. But it was good to sit with him for that. That was week 1. I thought this lockdown's quite good, but now we're in week 7. It's dragging on a bit.
Yeah. I take it there was no homeschooling the day after watching that game at 1 in the morning.
Well, I argued that was his homeschooling. That was his education.
That's fair enough. I mean, obviously, Joe, in terms of, we were in a real roll this season. 2020 has just been phenomenal. And, the manager had said we were rampaging through the league. So I suppose that the players want to finish the league, the manager does, the club does, and so do the fans, because we're witnessing history, because we're going for a quadruple treble and we want to enjoy that and experience that, notwithstanding that safety comes first and everything,
Yeah, for sure. And I think naturally, as you say, like the football will return whenever it's safe to do so, and that has to be at the forefront of everybody's mind. That the health and safety of everybody comes first. But just speaking, specifically to the football, like I said, in terms of my first memories as a fan, or empty for my generation, I was born in 1986, so throughout the 90s, our neighbours across the road had a lot of the success. Stopping the 10 was massive, as you say, Paul. Probably the biggest title in Celtic's history. But my dad's born in 1947. He saw the first 9 in a row, and I saw stopping the 10. And I can't quite fathom how big it is to be going for a 9th consecutive title against what my dad told me when I was growing up, and then obviously Celtic stopping the 10 in my early days as a Celtic fan. And it just speaks to how good Celtic have been consistently. You want to talk about the league and the football that's been played, to be winning every single season, to be winning everything for the past 3 years, 10 trophies in a row. No matter how many times you say it, it's incredible. It's just so good to watch, and it's breathtaking, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose, Simon, like from a player's point of view, obviously we're now just as fans and dealing with that, just purely in a football point of view. There's no games, but for players who are, as you know, would be training with a view to be playing, and especially at this time of the year, probably playing 2-3 times in the space of 8 days. Yeah. That takes a bit of adjustment as well.
It does, and it must be really frustrating for players at the moment. You put in all that effort, and the form before Christmas, there was a dip. Then the form after Christmas, to get the 13-point lead again and be surging towards that 9th title, for it to be halted at the moment, it's a real shame. The players will be frustrated. They'll want to play it out. I really don't know how it's going to pan out in terms of how it finishes, but Celtic did the work. They're 13 points ahead at the top. They're in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup. I really hope they can find a solution to play it out.
I suppose, as Joe was mentioning, it's incredible. You were obviously part of the team that stopped at 10. Then for us now to be all sitting here talking on the verge of seeing us winning 9, and then for us to be going for 10 is just a remarkable turnaround.
It is. It's just a reflection on the guys' achievements over the last few years. They've just went. They've went from bigger to better. You've got 5 or 6 of them there that have been right through it. You know, the Scottish boys at the heart of that team. Brendan Rodgers has come in. Neil Lennon's taken it on to another level again. It's great to watch. You know, your Scott Browns, your McGregors, your Forrests. They've been over the course, and all the other guys that have come in round about. So it's as Joe says there. It's remarkable because a cup, you know, you can have one off day, and you can be knocked out. To go on and win those cups in successive years, time and time again, it's a fantastic achievement.
And obviously, we're all looking forward in the fullness of time to get back doing our very successful Celtic TV commentary partnership. And obviously yours as well.
It just seems that long ago since that St Mirren game, doesn't it? It's bizarre.
I know, it's
7th of March, I think, wasn't it? It's only been 2 months tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, and that was a winning debut for you in terms of your first team commentary, Joe.
That's right, aye. Yeah, I said that when we had Lee Griffiths on the podcast, and he was unplayable that afternoon. It was almost as he'd some sort of foresight that he might not be back to Celtic Park for a little while, so he'd get his hat-trick in and really turn it on. Of course, one of those goals is up there for goal of the season this year as well, so good shift from him.
Well, as I say, it's good to talk to you, and hopefully, as I say, we'll all be back at Celtic Park before too long, and hopefully you don't get any more slagging, Simon, from your son.
Aye, there's every chance. whilst we're in lockdown and proximity of the house, there's every chance something else will happen.
Listen,
I'll keep you posted on Twitter.
just tell him you stopped at 10. That should stop all arguments.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
Right, cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Cheers. All right, thanks. Cheers.